dare I say, the best vintage watches in Geneva. Yeah, this is absolutely wild. We are back in Geneva, so of course we had to make a pit stop at the vintage watch staple that is the Davidoff brothers shop. They always have such an amazing assortment of new and interesting vintage watches for us to talk about. So let's go ahead inside and see what they have for us today. I feel like I'm in Geneva way too often these days.
Yes.
But when I am here, obviously I have to come visit the Davidoff brothers, who are also my brothers, who have some absolutely amazing, cool new watches. A couple we've seen before, but we're going to talk about them. But you guys have some really nice, dare I say, the best vintage watches in Geneva.
I'll take it.
So we'll find out. We're going to find out. So some new watches since the last time we were here like a month ago. Dealer's choice. What do you guys want to start with?
Okay, so generally, I mean, what you're seeing on the table, dress watches are having their day.
Yes.
We've been through like kind of a period of like stainless steel sports watch, 10 like straight years. And today we're seeing a more nuanced, strap watch, gold watch, a little bit of bling watch.
Right.
And the one I'm going to start with is the life lesson watch.
You want to start the video with life lessons?
I'll start the video with the life lesson.
Not a vintage watch. We pulled it out to share a life lesson.
Yes. So important stories. Adam and I actually partnered this watch. We bought a package of modern watches. One of those modern watches I traded, like even swap, for this watch. And essentially, I don't remember exactly what our cost was on the watch. It was probably around, like, let's say 42,000 or something.
I just remember that I had somebody would buy it for a nice profit.
55,000 was the offer.
Yeah, a nice profit. And you wanted to keep the watch for yourself.
So we had an offer for 55. In order for me to buy out Adam, it cost me $47,500, whichever. That was like the halfway point.
Sure.
Whatever. So it's like, oh, I'm getting a good deal because the offer from a dealer at the time was 65 from Adrian. I was like, great. I'm keeping it. Seems like a fair deal at the time. My most recent offer on this watch was from like a modern dealer was 28,000. So like 28.5 Swiss, so around like 31,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but listen.
But we'll sell it. We'll sell it for 35,000.
On the one hand, you kept it because you actually really enjoyed wearing it.
I have worn the shit out of this
what
watch.
You should absolutely do. I recently had an interaction with somebody where they offered me a watch a year ago.
Yes.
Literally a year ago, almost to the day. They were asking 16,000. I offered 15,000. So, oh no, sorry, I can't do it. And then all of a sudden, didn't hear back from the person. A year later, he messages me on Instagram like, "Hey, okay, I'll take the 15,000." I'm like, "You just accept my offer from that you've initially rejected from a year ago?" And I said, "I'm sorry, I'm no longer interested." And I think it's just one of those things that sometimes people
get greedy. Yes,
and
this is not the case. I really just wanted to enjoy this watch for a little while. I thought I would sell it within like a year later.
Sacha was waiting for AP to deliver a watch. He's like, I'm keeping it as long as I don't get another watch.
Yeah. So I mean,
which I never got.
I think
I still wear this long.
It's a good story, a good fable that everybody gets affected the same way when markets go up and down. The market obviously for that watch is very down, where some of these are very up. And if you're keeping a watch because you truly enjoy it, the money amount should not matter.
Yes.
But if you are trying to sell a watch and trying to squeeze every last dollar out of it, understand that you run the risk sometimes. And I've done it myself. Like I'm giving this advice, but I can't say I'm not hypocritical in saying that
we've all lived it.
Right. We've all lived it. Where sometimes that first offer or first proposal is really the best option. And you don't find that out until later, and you end up having to sell a watch for less money. And I think it goes for not just watches; it's a lot of other things.
Yeah, but we have clients. We have a client that came in selling a 15202,
right?
And he saw results for like 120, and he's like, I want 130,
right? And
he saw people asking 140, 150, and then he wanted more, and he wanted more. He ended up selling it for less,
right,
than what we originally offered him, which was in the 60s.
Okay. So that being said, let's now shift our attention to what we really want to be talking about. Awesome vintage watches. Can we start here?
Yes.
Can you guys help me understand? I know what the watch is. I'll have you explain what it is, but I never thought anybody cared about these watches. And then Luke sold one for like $20,000.
25. It just seemed like a huge amount of money for that watch.
A huge amount of money.
I'll tell you a funny story about this watch. It was in the late 90s I came across a huge closeout of these.
Right.
I remember that was yesterday, and I thought they were really cool. They were like $800, $900 each. We must have received, I don't know, 50, 60 pieces.
Okay.
I don't know. We weren't part of the original breakdown. Other bigger dealers got like probably 1,000 pieces altogether. But it was the entire production. And what I thought was really cool, it was a very sleek design. They tried to reproduce the couteau of Cartier, which is a very thin bezel.
Right.
And it's nice because today, actually, when Sacha bought it, he's like, holy shit, it looks like a pebble.
Right.
That's crossed over with Tanguy.
In lieu of the auction result, what are you guys going to list that for?
We're not listing it. We're actually just like a shop exclusive. It's $15,000.
Wow. Okay. So it seems very reasonable compared to one selling for $6,000 change more. Honestly, I never knew or understood the market for that watch because I didn't know there was such a market for the watch, but I guess they come up so infrequently that it's, one of those.
No, everybody's asking more, essentially. But I don't know if I believe in that, because the closest one I think on the internet right now is like a private seller on Chrono 24, and they're asking like $19,000.
Okay.
Which precipitously obviously changed probably from like a $7,000 listing to $19,000 following the auction result. Right. But he hasn't sold it. And so, I think that people, lest we forget, one auction result doesn't make the result. I do, having worn it for a little while and just serviced it as well. But I mean, having worn that watch, I kind of got it when I had it on the wrist. It is very, very difficult to take pictures of this watch because it's every angle is reflective.
Yes. I can see myself in every angle.
Exactly. So it's a pain to shoot, but it's really, really enjoyable on the wrist. And it's definitely a conversation starter.
These type of dials were now made in the last 30, 40 years. They were made mid-century. A lot of these watches were made by
early 20s jump hours, 30s jump hours. Yeah, exactly.
It's got it's got a retro vibe, and it's already at the time was a retro, type of design.
Double retro vibe, but
retro vibe.
Okay. Tell me about this Franck Muller. I don't know enough about these watches. I feel like Roy is going to, much to Sacha's chagrin, going to rattle off a list of details on this watch. So, I know you guys have been championing the Franck Mullers lately, and obviously you've been doing pretty well with them. The market's
it's a very, very unique niche because they kind of made the tonneau, this curved tonneau shape, what it is,
right?
In terms of bringing it back from oblivion. Although they're not the creators of the shape, obviously early was a copy of more the Cartier tonneau, which came first. I think that was 1906, a couple of years after the Juno.
Right.
Patek Philippe also, which they inspired themselves with the large Arabic numerals, and they actually made almost a copy of it, the chronometer, but the Centré Curvex, whatever shape, from the late 90s, early 2000s. The difference being that the 90s one is, I think, a bit smaller, and the 2000s one is a little bit larger.
So is this the larger or smaller?
This is the larger one.
Okay.
This is a master calendar. I think the earlier reference starts with the 2, and then the later reference starts with the 5, kind of like the Breguets with the 3 and 5 and 7 series. What this offers is just great value for a gold wristwatch with a complication, which is triple calendar, full set. I mean, box, papers, yada, yada, yada.
And I think this is also an era of Franck Muller that's not too avant-garde, crazy hours or colorful dials. That's too much,
The early crazy hours, I think for me at those prices is interesting because it's a fun, cool watch. And recently a colleague, basically a girl that works at a PR agency and watches, was talking to me about, I got a Franck Muller when I was when I graduated from high school. Should I get it serviced or whatever, and then put a new strap on, wear it? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah. Wow.
And she now wears this watch religiously.
It's great.
All the time because she's so great. It's comfortable. It's so cool, and it's colorful, and yada yada yada. So it's kind of becoming cool now.
Yeah. Uncool watch is becoming cool again. Again, I think even a watch that's out of fashion and out of favor always has a time and a place to wear it, enjoy it, as long as it speaks to you. So as long as she enjoys wearing it, I don't think it matters what the market thinks, and if you could pick these up and you like it at what you consider a value buy or bargain price, then why not,
These are very comfortable. So I don't know if you can see the case back, it's
curved. It really hugs the wrist properly.
That fits right. That basically inspired the Richard Mille design of this curved tonneau shaped case.
It hugs your wrist.
Yeah. It fits comfortably, and the tonneau shape was never popular, I would say, and people really think that Richard Mille put that shape out there as that curve,
the genesis.
The curved tonneau is really Richard Mille, but Franck Muller I think really kind of drummed that in
for the modern era. Absolutely.
Yeah,
100%.
I'm gonna add something to this. Back in the day, in the late 90s, again, as my experience with these type of watches began, I am 100% sure that Frank Muller by himself outsold Vacheron, Patek, Audemars, and Breguet. All four brands combined, Frank Muller was selling more than them, especially around the world. I met him at a Vegas show, and he was my old boss. He was like, "Do you want to open a boutique for me? You're outperforming my U.S. distributor," because he was pulling from Japan, pulling from Europe, everything you could get, and reselling it all over the country. It was one of the two brands where you couldn't import, like Rolex.
They had the import ban in the U.S.
That's how big they were.
That's how big they
were. It all blew out. They all stopped the import ban at the same time.
Right. So let's move to the watch that's next in line and coupled in with what's on your wrist. As we know, Cartier is so hot right now in the market.
That Hansel's so hot right now.
So this watch just set yet again a record. It keeps every time it goes up for sale.
3 back-to-back auction records.
Every time going higher and higher.
Yeah. So the first one was me. Obviously, with
buying this one,
yes.
Coussin.
So both you and Roy telling me to please stop, you're crazy, and that was in November last year.
Right.
Then again, I think in January, February of this year, Loop This sold one for $67,000.
Right.
And then now just Bonham's London sold one for $97,000.
Yeah, when bid was not even remotely close.
I think we were
far, half.
Far.
What's your take? I mean, why is Cartier, when a market is depressed on a lot of other stuff, with a lot of watches going down, Cartier just continues to see increases?
Okay, so it depends on the model. First of all, it has to be something that's big and impressive on the wrist.
Yes, which this is.
Yes, it's a jumbo. I mean, it's a large size.
And they did make this watch in a smaller size, a lady size.
And also, when it watches Knightsbridge, the lady size just sold for $40,000 also.
What?
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. I'd have to fish out the result, but I thought it was going to sell for a lot less.
Okay.
Not only are they rare, they're a very, very small batch series. They were launched as part of that Louis Cartier collection in 1973. There was 12 different models that were either launched or relaunched in 1973. This is one of them. You also had kind of the Tank Fabergé. You had a bunch of different, basically models. Right. You also had the Baignoire, which came back, and a bunch of things. These are not only rare, but I started looking for them about 6 years ago, having remembered or thought that I had seen one on my uncle's wrist when I was a kid. And so I saw one and I was like, okay, I must have this. And back then they were nicknamed, and still today, the bamboo, which is actually wrong.
It's a Coussin.
It's a Coussin, exactly.
Sorry,
because
cushion.
The claws that you have on the edges here are actually raised.
Right.
And not,
indented. There's a tonneau bamboo, actually.
Yeah, so basically there's bamboo jewelry, but for it to be a bamboo, there'd have to be it'd have to go down. It'd have to be
But to add to this watch, it's really cool because this is one of the Paris designs, and this particular one is Paris sign dial and the French hallmarks.
Yes.
So it's this is, if you have to get a Coussin, you would need to get this one because this is one of the rare ones that both the dial and the case matches.
For example, the one that Mike Nouveau wears is an American market one. It has a big 18K on the back. It says 18K. Right. And the dial says Swiss instead of Paris.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's American market.
And you have an important strap on the watch too as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Bento watches.
Yes.
Which we didn't remove for the shooting. We kept it.
Kept the bento watches.
So what's on your wrist? I think you bought it from a really crappy person, but just tell us about it anyways.
So this comes from the devil himself. That would be Adam. You can see kind of that curved case that we were talking about, that curved case design. This is a mix between, so technically it's a Baignoire Allongée, but due to the size, because it's much bigger, and the Paris style, I call this the Maxi Baignoire or the Maxi Baignoire Allongée. It's a mix between a Maxi Oval, which is a London 1960s watch, and the larger Baignoire Allongée from the 70s or, subsequent ones. It's really, really big. Lengthwise, and just the proportions. So Baignoire means bathtub in French, and that comes from the round, the oval shape and the rounded kind of, edges. But this is like a Maxi Baignoire. The biggest, stretched out Baignoire you can have. And I like it because it's got a Cartier crash vibe to it.
Or pre-crash vibe.
Honestly, before you guys took it off my hands, I was wearing it for a few days straight because you bought it pretty quickly after I got it. But I absolutely love wearing it on the wrist. There's really honestly not much like it.
The first time I ever asked about the Cartier crash design people told me, oh, that was from a Baignoire Allongée that got all mangled.
Right.
And I was like, oh,
what's not correct, but it's a granddaughter of who was it? It was somebody high up at Cartier. Granddaughter wrote in a book.
Francesca Cartier,
something like that. Yeah.
Francesca Brickle.
Might even been.
And what did she say?
And she said they were just testing new designs, and so they on the drawings just wanted to like pinch out the case. I'll find it. I'll send it to you. But it had nothing to do with the car crash, nothing to do with the fire, nothing to do with Salvador Dali, nothing to do like that. They were just testing out new designs that were more kind of Art Deco and a little bit different, to attract new clients. That was it. That
Correct.
Was
the lore around it kind of drew my attention to. I actually learned about the Cartier Baignoire Allongée through the crash,
right?
But it was a legend or like a kind of like a confusion in the story, and I love that watch.
I love it too.
It's got like great,
really, really sits well.
It's just so cool. It's just so cool.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just has to be cool.
So yeah, as a vintage watch dealer, we've come to an era or a category of watch where we're not just getting compliments from like geeky watch guys. Either non-watch people or even, dare I say, ladies are finally giving us compliments about, on these watches because, as a outside or bystander or from a female perspective, like, that whole era of like stainless steel sports models was a bit niche, I guess.
Right.
And like if you're wearing a Big Crown Submariner from like the 50s, that's like, cares. Aged and patinated and crackled crystal and whatever, like that's cool. But like maybe most people will be like, I don't get it.
I don't get it.
So like, I think that a gold watch or a dress watch or a funky shaped Cartier like this, it's like, oh, that's cool. I've never seen that before.
It's a conversation piece for sure.
Yes.
It's a conversation piece.
Especially something like that. My friend like looked at the watch and he's like, oh, I thought that was like an optical illusion. And he knows nothing about watches.
Right.
He's bought like one nice Rolex from us for his wife.
Right.
But I thought that was like an interesting like perspective.
Commentary.
He's like, I can't believe that. He's like, I thought that was like an optical illusion. I didn't realize, that was the actual.
But when it all boils down to it, I think the design is timeless and very cool, but I've just never had so much fun wearing a watch in a while,
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of watches I really enjoy wearing it, but I was blown away because it's just not what I normally wear. That when I did have this on the wrist, I was really, really enjoying it. Okay, well.
I'm enjoying this phase, and it also brings me to the next kind of like topic here.
Well, before we get to ending with a blingy bang, let's talk about this mother of pearl, because I love mother of pearl dials.
This guy.
With a little lapis moon phase disc at the top. Gerald Genta.
So it's a perpetual calendar. Yeah, from Genta. It's a bit smaller, so it's 33 millimeters. It's got those, what looks like, it's like hooded lugs at the top and bottom. The mother of pearl is cut out for the leap year indicator, and the calendar itself is actually in Italian. So, kind of like a rarer variant. Language calendars are a thing. I mean, we have a French calendar coming up here that I'll explain in a second. But yeah, perpetual calendars, Genta, mother of pearl dials, like, these types of things are kind of
90s
keywords.
Or like early 2000s?
90s.
This actually is a type of complication that maybe me from the 80s that gave birth to the Pasha. Because the Pasha, compared to many of the watches, if you look, always the moon phase is on the bottom, and the Pasha was up top, because if I'm not mistaken, it should be the same module.
Yeah, and concave bezel, and also
similar look.
Not mysterious that he designed the Pasha. So
perpetual.
I have to assume that this is also like a very great value purchase. What are you guys going to list this for, if you don't mind me asking?
I think it's listed on our website for 15 Swiss.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, listen, a perpetual calendar, solid gold watch from Genta, who is picking up a lot of steam with the relaunch of the brand. Mother of pearl. Like, I think there's a lot to unpack there, especially for the price. Generally, something new with this kind of layout would be multiples of that. From another brand,
45, 50, 60.
Right. You can't get a brand new perpetual calendar watch from like a mega brand for less.
Well, if Genta were to relaunch a perpetual calendar today, it would be like 60 grand.
It's so like more.
More. Their time only is already above that.
Yeah, is it? Their time only is starting out, I think, in the six figures. Yeah, honestly, I'm a huge fan of this, and I like smaller watches. So, and even Geneva Recepi appreciates smaller watches and only wears smaller watches. So it's certainly a thing that's coming back. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of comments like, no one cares about smaller watches, because every time we talk about that, there's people who like resist, but it's coming, people. The smaller watch.
I think it wears
true
well.
Collectors understand smaller watches.
So we have
the bling ring, as I like to call it.
I mean, it's kind of wild. I don't know. I hope people appreciate how crazy it is to see these three watches together, because all three of them are incredibly rare in their own right. So to see them alone would be a feat. You know, you just never see them. But to have them all sitting here, they're three incredibly rare Vacherons with all factory set, some form of diamond.
Some form of diamond. So essentially, there's only about a handful known of these skeleton perpetuals in either gold or platinum with the diamond bezel. This one is the only one known with the French calendar. One had cream registers. This one has white registers. So like I've spoken to the scholars about this. Extremely rare configuration. And what I like about it is that the skeleton perpetual calendar has a lot of like matte and shiny parts that kind of like contrast. And then you frame that with like the round diamonds around the bezel, and I think the whole look has a lot of depth to it. And I enjoyed that a lot. I enjoy that like in person. I think it's worth looking at in person versus what you would see on a on screen.
And I like this also because I think the diamonds on this particular watch are subtle, so they don't detract from the skeletonized dial. Whereas these two watches that we're going to get to next, obviously, it's very in your face.
I'm gonna add a little detail about the skeletonization and the perpetual of Vacheron compared to the perpetual of AP that you have next to you. The nice thing is that this is, if I'm not mistaken, galvanized blue, the sky, and here's going to be lapis.
Yes, correct.
And if you look at the back of the rotor at the Vacheron, you can see it. From the front side, you can see the rotor. You can see that it's also engraved
on the
facing the front.
Yeah, it's going to show that in camera. But I see what you're saying.
But also the biggest difference when you're looking at, like, people ask you like which one is better, like the Vacheron or the AP. Honestly, it really is a matter of taste. The only big technical difference between a Vacheron perpetual calendar from the same era as the AP is that the AP has a minute scale and the Vacheron does not. So the Vacheron allows for more visibility of the skeletonized movement underneath, so you can even see that rotor moving more so than you could on the AP. The AP favors more of the timekeeping approach, where, I mean, it's a perpetual calendar, you should have minutes on it. Vacheron disagrees. And instead, also on a technical side, the AP just has 12 months.
Even though it's perpetual, but it doesn't show the leap year.
Right. It doesn't show the leap year, but it's included in the mechanism. Here you have 4 quadrants, which essentially represents the 4 years in the cycle, and
it's 48 months.
So the scale is a bit harder to read because the months are much smaller.
It's very difficult to like make out the quadrants when you're actually using it in practice.
I just set this one, and I had to use a loop. I'll be real.
So tell us about this one. I mean, this is just. I mean,
we have never
put it just a wow watch.
We have never seen another one.
Wow.
And in this condition. And this type of bracelet, it's phenomenal.
So this is the only perpetual calendar integrated bracelet that matches perfectly the archives. They even have the motif, which is called 230, motif 230.
What does that mean?
That's the type of bracelet.
Wow. It's woven.
And it's included into the reference. So like in the archives, it says like -230J or whatever.
Okay.
The pave dial. So you have pave dial integrated bracelet, box, papers, receipt, pin tool, like full size.
What year was this produced?
So it was made in 1990 and it was sold in 1996.
This is incredible. I gotta put this on.
It's so comfortable to wear.
Yeah, this is incredible. Where'd you guys find this?
At auction. And a guilty pleasure of mine, because I, as a vintage watch
love
dealer,
wearing blingy.
I absolutely adore gold and diamonds. Yeah. I'm in the like last remaining city in Europe where you still can like safely kind of wear these watches.
You can.
Is this a keeper or is this going for sale?
It's for sale. Okay, so this is the deal. I have.
Listen.
He's gonna wear it until someone buys it.
You're not asking a question. You're not.
It's not. He's not. Some watches are off the market.
Right.
This is on the market, but he's gonna wear it until it sells.
So this one is not for sale, for example.
Okay.
And it's something that like once I decide to sell it, it'll be like kind of a low key thing. I was in discussion with somebody about it, and then they kind of like were wishy-washy, and I was like, you know what, forget it. This watch, we decided to list it, and I told myself, if nobody's bought it by the end of summer, like I'm buying it from the company, and I'm just gonna keep that watch. I love that watch. Like I love.
This is you're not gonna see another one.
Yeah.
And it's also one of those watches where like it's difficult for me to like keep the perpetual calendar set like exactly and yada yada yada.
I mean, I find myself enjoying perpetual calendars without
setting.
Sometimes I'll set like day. I'll set part of it.
I set it once. I'm happy. I don't think I'll ever go through the trouble of setting it again. I enjoy just kind of like even not caring about reading the time on this because it's like blingy, so you're like, oh, whatever. It's like hard to read.
Yeah, visibility is not great. You're wearing this as a statement. Let's be real.
Yes, I love it because I feel like kind of like this is like a prince or like some royalty watch of some sort. You know, like
100%.
The Sultan of somewhere ordered this watch.
Or an emir or a sheikh.
Yeah, the condition's beautiful too. Really, really nice.
No, and it fits Sacha quite well.
Right.
He's really happy.
Now, the 222...
What is this listed for?
60K Swiss?
Okay. Yeah, something like that.
What do you think the retail on this was? It had to have been over 100.
Yeah.
It was
easily.
over 100. Yeah. For 96, it would probably be way over 100.
Yeah. Even in the 90s, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
This had to have been like their highest end.
Because I saw list prices for just perpetual calendars or perpetual skeleton. They were like up there.
Right. Well, this was top of the line Vacheron back in the day.
And if
this is probably the best watch you can get from them at the time.
And if people don't remember, is that even
maybe
having
some mid-repeater,
a gold bracelet, it sometimes doubled the price of the watch.
Right.
Yes. Gold was a huge factor.
Because they probably had to go into so much R&D just for this type of woven bracelet by itself.
Yeah. Because for them to have a reference for the motif, like it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Although you see this on it's a pretty common like look or motif, I guess, from either AP or Vacheron from the time period, early 90s essentially. But I don't know, that just works all together. The second one is something that you never see with the bling. It's a Vacheron 222 that's been in my collection for over a year and a half now. The 222 by itself is rare. The 222 in gold is extremely rare. The 222 with diamonds, only 5 were made.
That's it.
That's it. 5 were made. They were absurdly expensive, impossible to sell. Nobody wanted them, and they discontinued it immediately.
You know what I really love about this watch, though? Is that the links, as you approach the clasp, do not have diamonds on them.
Yes.
Because I feel like wearing this watch, I would always be so paranoid about putting my wrist down and cracking one of the stones.
Do you know why?
Why?
So I asked. And it's because back then the guys wearing this stuff were wearing these like very, very fancy wool suits.
And
they didn't want the diamonds to catch on the cashmere sweaters, on the suits and everything to catch the textile.
That makes sense.
I want to do a little segue. 1978 is when this watch came out.
Right.
Yes.
And it's the same year that the most expensive wristwatch ever made came out, called the Calista.
Hit us with it before we sign off.
Was a full baguette, $5 million watch, $5 million from
1978.
In 78. That watch gave birth to every baguette watch after that. Today, they're known as the Cala. So you have the King Cala, the Queen Cala, the Princess, the
Maybe
Prince.
because I don't pay enough to like crazy baguette
watches.
Who was made by?
Vacheron.
The Cala.
The Calista in 1978, and all the subsequent ones are all called the Cala.
Every time Roy mentions Calista, I think it sounds like a stripper's name from 11. But
how do you spell that?
Thrones.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. Somebody asked me for one of these recently. I'm like,
a Cala.
Good luck.
Not a Calista. No, you find them.
I mean,
you find them all the time. But they made so many variations of this particular watch.
Oh God,
the funny story is that while I was a GIA in 1999, I was driving back from San Diego to LA, and a friend of mine calls me up and he's like, "Oh, I have a watch I need to sell." And unfortunately, the person in question was embroiled in turmoil.
Right.
So I was like, I'm not buying his watch. Nor am I offering it out.
Right.
It was Michael Jackson's own personal King Cala. In 99, it was not a good year for him.
Yeah.
But crazy enough, my friend had that watch and he was trying to raise money. And it was today's probably $1 million plus watch.
Right.
But back then, I think it was like 400,000 or something.
Wow.
Crazy.
Amazing how big the drop off is. Like 10% of what it was originally retailed at or less.
No, but the retails are all over the place for these watches.
Right.
Because you had the mini ones, which are the Princess, which is head only.
Right.
Then you had like the full bracelet ones. Then you had, they made, I'm going to say, hundreds of variations of the Cala. And all different types of settings. And even have simple time only rectangulars,
right,
which have like the Cala nickname because they're just baguettes.
Gotcha.
But for Vacheron, for a brand that was making very few watches back then, this was a very, very big feat.
Right. Well, guys, thank you so much for showing us these new watches. I'm sure I'll be back here in another month, and I'll come pop in to see what else you guys have in store. As always, if you are in Geneva, make sure you make an appointment. Even if you want to come by and just, harass Roy for some details from some 1978 watch that no one else knows, he's happy to indulge. But obviously, they always have fantastic selection of vintage watches in Geneva. So set an appointment, come see them, follow them on Instagram at Davidoff Brothers, and see you guys on the next video.
Awesome. Thanks for coming back.
Yep.
Thanks.